Moving forward, I mentioned before that there are two different scales used in gamelan. The word for scale in gamelan music is laras. So a full gamelan actually has at least two of every single instrument, one in slendro and one in pelog. Now, when we're playing in one of these two scales, we're also using a particular mode. The word for mode in Javanese gamelan is pathet. So this concept basically it determines what notes are emphasized and which particular patterns are used. So we have a particular feel depending on which notes are actually emphasized in each mode. So here on this slide we have the two different laras, the pelog and the slendro mode. The pelog is 7-tone and the slendro is 5 tones. And beneath we can see which notes are kind of emphasized and how they work. Don't worry too much about memorizing the names of these modes or anything like that. The hope is that later, as we are listening to a variety of compositions and learning how to play them, we're going to actually get a kind of more natural feel as far as how these modes work. So essentially, when we are talking about or learning Javanese gamelan, we don't refer to these notes by their English names. We don't call them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Instead, we refer to them by their Javanese names. Those Javanese names are written on the bottom of the screen here. So 1 is Sichi, 2 is Loro, 3 is Telu, 4 is Papat, 5 is Limo, 6 is Enam, 7 is Pitu. Now, when we are learning this music from an oral standpoint, a lot of times we'll actually just shorten them to one syllable, right? So this makes it easier to sing along with the parts. If I'm learning by ear, somebody can sing a part to me using these names relatively easily. So these are actually shortened just to one syllable. Now this is going to be important to remember and to memorize these names for the notes because we're going to be using this a lot in our playing. So we have 1, Chi, 2, Ro, 3, Lu, 4, Pat, 5, Mo, 6, Num, and 7, Pi. So those are the names that I'm going to be using anytime I'm referring to these individual notes. All right, and those parts are the bold syllables here at the bottom that you can see right here. So, as I mentioned before, Gamelan Java has two different scales. Slendro, which is a 5-tone scale, and Pelog, which is a 7-tone scale. So we're going to work on singing these scales. Now, it's worth remembering also, every gamelan is tuned individually. So every set of instruments actually has its own scale. So you can't move one instrument to another gamelan, for example. They're all tuned specifically for that gamelan. So if you try this on a different gamelan, it might be slightly different, but more or less the same. In any case, the first one we're going to do is the 5-tone scale, slendro. So on a slendro gamelan, the lowest note on the saron starts with actually 6, or in Javanese, num. Again, num, 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 num. And then 1, or in Javanese, si chi, and we're going to call that chi. Chi, chi. And then 2, or loro, or ro. Ro. 3, or telu, and we shorten that to lu. Lu. And then we skip 4, go directly to 5, which I can explain that later if you want. So that's in Javanese, limo is 5, or just shorten it to mo. Mo, mo. And then enam lagi. 6, one more time. Nam, nam. And finally we have high 1. Chi, chi. Okay, so we're going to sing that scale from bottom to the top. Nam, chi, ra, lo, ma, nam, chi. I'm always going to use the Javanese names of these notes because if you ever play in a gamelan, for example, when you happen to visit Indonesia, everyone is going to use the Javanese names. So it's best not to get used to using English numbers. Okay, now let's try that same thing, descending, starting from high 1. Chi, nam, ma, lo, ra, chi, nam. Good. Okay, so with Pelog, our saron has 7 notes. So we have no repeated tones because, as I mentioned, Pelog is a 7-note scale. So we're going to start from 1, which is still si chi, or shortened becomes chi. Chi. And then 2, or lo ro, which is ro. 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 And then lu, pelu, which is 3. Lo, lo. And then 4, or papat, which then just becomes pat. Pat, pat. And then we have 5, or limo, just becomes mo. Ma, ma, ma. And then 6, or enam, which just becomes num. Nam, nam, nam. And finally 7, or pitu, which usually just becomes pi. Pi, pi. So when we play in Pelog, we don't actually usually use all of the notes for a particular piece. Usually we're playing in a mode, right? So a mode takes particular notes that are important for that given piece or for that particular mode. Yeah. These modes in Javanese are called pathet. Pathet. So in Pelog, the most common pathet that we are using are Pelog nem and Pelog barang. Pelog nem uses the notes 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. And Pelog barang uses the notes 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Simple as that. 4 is really rarely used in general. We don't use it that much. Only specific pieces use that one a lot. So instead of practicing singing the whole Pelog scale, we're going to practice just singing these modes. So first, let's start with Pelog nem. 1, 2, descending. Nam, ma, lo, ra, chi. All right, very good. Now let's try Pelog barang. Ra, lo,